During Christmas dinner, when the family was exchanging gifts, my daughter handed me a thick envelope with the words, "You'll like this." I opened it, and inside was her husband's $250,000 debt. "The money is needed before New Year's," she said. I smiled and said, "Sure." But a plan for revenge was already forming in my head. When my daughter came back for the money, that man was standing next to me, and when she saw him, she screamed in shock. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. Christmas carols drifted through my Austin home as I settled into my favorite armchair, watching my family gather around the tree. The warm glow of lights reflected off scattered wrapping paper, creating the perfect holiday evening I'd been looking forward to all week. Tommy sat cross-legged on the floor, still tearing through his presents with 16-year-old enthusiasm. "Grandpa, you've got one more gift coming," Melissa announced, her smile too bright as she approached with an envelope. Something in her tone made me set down my coffee cup. "You're going to love this, Dad." The envelope felt heavy in my hands. Official, not the usual Christmas card weight. Mark shifted uncomfortably on the couch, avoiding my eyes entirely. After 35 years of reading people in business negotiations, I recognized the signs of someone hiding something significant. "This isn't an ordinary gift," Melissa continued, perching on the arm of my chair. "You'll love it because you can help your family." The papers inside weren't greeting cards, investment documents, loan agreements, numbers that made my vision blur for a moment. $250,000. Mark's signatures scattered across multiple pages, along with names I didn't recognize. Official letterheads from private investment firms. 250,000. The words came out quieter than I intended. "That's quite specific." Melissa's confidence wavered slightly, but she pressed forward. "Mark got into trouble. One investor will sue him if he doesn't return the money. We've been hiding for a month." The Christmas tree lights suddenly felt too bright. I could hear Tommy's excited chatter fade as he sensed the shift in atmosphere. Mark finally looked up, his face pale and drawn. How long had they been planning this moment? How long had they been waiting for the perfect opportunity to corner me? "Hiding for a month," I repeated, letting the weight of those words settle. They'd known about this debt since before Thanksgiving, before our family dinner last week, before every phone call where Melissa asked about my health, my business, my plans for Christmas. "You could have asked instead of demanding." My voice carried the chill I'd perfected in boardroom negotiations that went south. Melissa straightened, her smile becoming more forced. "Dad, don't be difficult. This is family. We help each other, right?" The envelope crinkled as I set it on the side table. Mark opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. The silence stretched until Tommy's unwrapping sound seemed deafening. My grandson glanced between his parents and me, confused by the sudden tension. "By New Year," Melissa added, as if the timeline made the demand more reasonable. "We need it by New Year or the lawsuit starts." I studied my daughter's face, searching for any sign of the little girl who used to climb into the same chair to read bedtime stories. Instead, I saw calculation, entitlement, the assumption that my money was somehow automatically theirs when needed. "Absolutely," I said finally, watching relief flood Melissa's features. "I'll certainly think about it." She leaned over to kiss my cheek, already moving toward Mark with satisfied confidence. "I knew you'd understand, Dad. Family takes care of family." But as she turned away, she missed the cold smile that touched my lips. Oh, I understood perfectly, and I would indeed think about it very carefully. The relief in Melissa's eyes lasted exactly as long as it took me to stand from my chair. Something in my movement, or perhaps the silence that followed my agreement, made her pause near the tree. 35 years I raised you to respect people," I said, my voice carrying the authority that had built 3 successful dealerships. "And you come to my home on Christmas with an ultimatum." "What?" Melissa spun around, her confident expression cracking. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "I'm asking for help." Asking, I picked up the envelope, letting the papers spill across my lap. "This isn't a request, Melissa," This is a business presentation complete with documentation, deadlines, and consequences. Mark finally found his voice. Mr. Clark, I know this looks bad, but the startup needed additional investments to reach the next funding round. The projection showed. Stop. I held up a hand, never taking my eyes off my daughter. You lost someone else's money on your failed project, and now you're hiding behind my daughter. Melissa's face flushed red. Don't be dramatic. This is family. We should help each other. You have more money than you could ever spend. That's not the point. My voice grew colder with each word. The point is that you've spent a month planning this ambush. You've been calling me, pretending to care about my health, my Christmas plans, my loneliness since your mother died, all while calculating the perfect moment to corner me. Tommy quietly set down his remaining presents and slipped from the room. Smart boy. He could sense when adult conversations turned ugly. I do care about you. Melissa's voice rose, her gestures becoming more dramatic. But Mark needs help, and you're being selfish. Selfish. The word hung in the air like a challenge. I've given you everything. College tuition, down payment on your house, seed money for Mark's first business venture. How much of my selfishness have you enjoyed over the years? Mark shifted forward on the couch, desperation creeping into his voice. Sir, the AI startup had real potential. The market research showed massive growth potential in automated customer service solutions. We just needed more runway to attract Series A investors. Runway. I repeated the startup jargon with distaste. Is that what you call gambling with other people's money? How many investors did you sweet talk with your projections and potential? It wasn't gambling. Mark's voice cracked. The technology was sound. We had early adopters showing interest. The timing was what? I stepped closer to him. When exactly did you realize you were in over your head? Before or after you took Victor Stone's money? The name hit Mark like a physical blow. His face went white. You know Victor. I know Victor Stone quite well. I watched understanding dawn in Mark's eyes. Did you think Austin's business community was large enough for your name not to get around? Did you imagine I wouldn't hear about my son-in-law hiding from creditors? Melissa's confidence finally shattered completely. You've known this whole time. You've known. I've known about the debt for 2 weeks. What I didn't know was how you planned to handle it. I gestured to the scattered papers. I never imagined you'd choose manipulation over honesty. The room fell silent, except for the gentle hum of Christmas lights and the distant sound of dishes clinking as Tommy busied himself in the kitchen. Melissa sank onto the couch beside Mark, her face a mixture of anger and shame. So what now? She asked, her voice smaller than before. I looked at both of them, seeing clearly for the first time who they'd become. Now I'll think about it. Just like I promised. The silence stretched until Melissa found her voice again, though it carried a bitter edge I'd never heard before. Fine. She stood abruptly, smoothing her dress with sharp, angry movements. I'll come December 29th, at 4 o'clock. I hope you'll get over yourself and think it through by then. Her words hit me like a slap. Get over myself. As if my reaction to their deception was somehow unreasonable. As if questioning their methods made me the villain in this scenario. I'll think about it. I repeated calmly. I promise. Mark rose from the couch, his movements uncertain. Mr. Clark. He glanced at Melissa, then back at me. I never wanted it to happen this way. Goodbye, Mark. The finality in my voice silenced whatever apology he'd been preparing. Melissa grabbed her purse from the side table, her movements sharp and efficient. The careful Christmas presentation was over. No more pretense of family warmth. Come on, Mark. She headed toward the front door without looking back. We're done here. I remained standing in the living room, listening to their hurried footsteps in the hallway. The front door opened and closed with more force than necessary. Through the window, I watched their car back out of my driveway, headlights sweeping across the lawn before disappearing into the Austin evening. The house felt different now. The Christmas decorations seemed somehow ridiculous. cheerful reminders of the family gathering that had just exploded. I walked slowly to the dining room where our abandoned dinner plates still sat on the table. Melissa's wine glass bore a lipstick stain on the rim. Mark had barely touched his food. I began clearing the table, stacking plates with methodical precision. The familiar rhythm of cleaning helped organize my thoughts. 35 years of fatherhood. And it had come to this, an ultimatum delivered with Christmas wrapping paper still scattered around my feet. Grandpa, Tommy appeared in the doorway, his young face creased with concern. Are they always like this? I paused, holding Melissa's half-empty wine glass. Not always, but more often lately. He moved closer, helping me gather the silverware. The money they want. It's a lot, isn't it? It's substantial. Yes, I appreciated his directness. At 16, Tommy often showed more maturity than his parents. How much did you hear? Enough. He folded napkins with careful precision, mimicking my movements. Dad's startup failed, and now they want you to fix it. The simple truth of it struck me. That's exactly what they wanted. Not help, not alone with terms and conditions. They wanted me to fix Mark's mistakes and make their problems disappear. Grandpa, Tommy's voice was quieter now. What are you going to do? I looked at my grandson, this young man who'd chosen to stay and help clean up, rather than disappear when things became uncomfortable, who asked direct questions instead of dancing around the truth. I'm going to think about it very carefully, I said, meaning every word. As we finished clearing the table together, my mind was already working. December 29th, at 4 o'clock, 4 days to consider their demand, 4 days to decide how to respond to 35 years of raising a daughter who thought love could be purchased with ultimatums. The Christmas lights twinkled in the living room, but I was no longer seeing holiday decorations. I was seeing possibilities, options, strategies. 4 days was plenty of time to think. And thinking, as any successful businessman knows, was just the first step in a much larger process. Sleep had been elusive. I'd sent Tommy home around 10, promising him we'd talk more soon, then spent hours in my office, staring at the Christmas debt papers spread across my desk. The numbers hadn't changed, but my perspective had crystallized with each passing hour. Dawn crept through the blinds as I sat surrounded by the artifacts of my business life. Awards from the Austin Chamber of Commerce, photos with satisfied customers at my dealerships, the framed first dollar bill from my very first car sale in 1982. Each memento reminded me of the principles that had built my success: integrity, accountability, and consequences for poor decisions. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, but the legal pad in front of me was covered with notes, questions that needed answers, connections that needed exploring. The businessman in me had taken over from the hurt father, and that meant approaching this situation like any other complex negotiation. Victor Stone, the name had haunted Mark's expression yesterday evening in Austin's business community. Stone Investment Group carried weight. I'd heard the name at chamber meetings, seen it in the business journal. Private equity, hard money loans, the kind of investor who didn't play games with deadbeat debtors. I reached for my phone and dialed Tom Brown's office number.